This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so now we have created a debit memo against invoice, right? So first we'll try to create a debit memo without referring to the any invoice. Okay, then we'll move into the credit memo. Okay, so debit memo or credit memo, it should always be represented in negative amounts, right? Yes. INR, the payment terms, everything got defaulted. Sorry, this transaction type should be your debit memo. Okay, 500. So here you need to select the distribution, right? So when you are matching, when you are creating a debit memo against an invoice, so as soon as you select the invoice correct unmatched invoice from the list of values against lines, the invoice for which we are against an invoice for which we are creating a debit memo, the distribution automatically got populated from the source invoice. But whereas we are creating an debit memo which is standalone debit memo, where we need to give the distribution manually. Okay, right, we have populated the distribution with the negative amount. So invoice got saved. Let us validate. So invoice validated successfully. And let us do an accounting in draft. Let us view the accounting. Right, this is what the expected accounting, right? Standard invoice, the liability gets credit, but whereas in case of debit memo or credit memo, the liability will get debit and the corresponding expense account will get credit, right? This is how the liability balance will get reduced, right? Fine. So we'll create another now we will create a credit memo against the same supplier. So we can click on the we have an option, right? Save and click next. What happens? So the existing invoice will get saved and the same invoice form will get open. Okay. Give the supplier details. Okay. Credit memo. Sorry. Minus 300. This is my credit memo, and I'm creating again against an unmatched invoice because the invoices whatever I created are not pure matched invoice, right? Let us find out the invoice against which we are going to create. Just give the amount correction type as amount correction, then give the amount which you want to correct against this invoice. Right, I just adjusted the invoice amount because I had matched this invoice while correcting. I had given a 200, so that is the reason I just updated the invoice header amount as well. Right, you guys know, right, how to enter the lines. I mean, how to find out the invoice for which you want to match this invoice, for which the against which invoice you are going to correct the amount, right? So correct unmatched invoices, go and give the date, search criteria. If you know the invoice number, you can give, or else you can, to get the all the invoices against this supplier, you need to give the from and to date range and click on search, right? So it would display all the invoices, available invoices for which the adjustment can be done, the correction can be done. Just enable against which invoice you want to correct, click on that one and give the amount. That's it, just give the amount and apply and okay. Okay, that is how the invoice, the whatever the invoice distributions, those got invoice distribution, those are available against this test invoice, test one to invoice might must be having its distribution account, right? That distribution account will get copied over here. Okay, you can see that as well. Distributions, you can check that one. Right, so this invoice had two distributions, and the same proportion, the invoice distribution, this invoice has two distributions. These distributions are got populated based on a distribution set where we had given the distribution set for 60 and 40% ratio. That is why even the amount also got proportionate distributed according to the distribution set which is there on the source invoice, right? Okay, let us validate this invoice. Invoice got validated and rest of the process is same. Create accounting, so you can view the accounting, right? Liability got debited and the corresponding two expenses for the proportion of 60/40 got credited. This is how the accounting gets generated, and this will generate a GL in, this will create a journal that would you can see in the general ledger module, right? GL responsibility. From GL also we have seen how you can drill down that functionality, we have already seen, right? This is about the credit memo. Now, so the credit memo, what we have seen against a standard invoice, right? So we have created a credit memo to match to correct the invoice amount. So in the same way like we did for debit memo, we can even do that as well. So what we did for a debit memo, we have created a debit memo without referring to any invoice, right? We'll quickly create one credit memo, standalone credit memo, what you can call. What is the amount? Minus 150, and give the distributions or distribution set, whatever you want, right? Just go and validate, right? Invoice got validated, and you can create accounting. Maybe it is in draft or post ledger. The same accounting, right? So save and close. So we'll see the other option. How do you create invoice? So what are the transaction types we have so far seen? Standard invoice, debit memo, credit memo. The prepayment and the retainage release. So retainage release is for releasing an retained amount, that we will see later. For another type is prepayment. For prepayment in invoice, to test the complete functionality of prepayment, we should have the payment configurations, right? Before that, let us see if we can proceed with any of the invoice transactions. There is a concept called, if you remember, we have discussed invoices can be recurring invoices, we can also create. That is what we discussed, right? So we'll see recurring invoice now. So what is a recurring invoice? So recurring invoice, which is repetitive in nature, right? So for example, your lease expenses or the rent expenses, those expenses you will be paying that expenses to the your landlord on a frequent intervals, right? Maybe monthly or quarterly, whatever. So for that invoice, you can configure your system to generate that invoice automatically, so that the invoice can be paid. So unless no need to wait for the invoice to come from the vendor, the supplier, and you don't need to enter that invoice as your invoice creation process. So this the repetitive invoices which are in kind of repetitive, you can configure your system to generate the invoices for given frequency. So for that, you need to make some configurations. Okay, let us see what are those. This we have done. So recurring invoices. So there are two components. Recurring invoices are repetitive in nature. So which means you want system to generate this invoice at what frequency, right? So the frequency we need to set up in the system, right? That we call as calendar, payables calendar in Oracle. Okay. Okay, payables calendar as well as the template. So these are the prerequisite setup that you need to do for recurring invoices, to generate the recurring invoices. Okay, so let us go and create a payables calendar right now. So what is the task name to achieve this payables calendar? Okay, go to setup and maintenance. Your implementation project. Right. overview and your implementation project. Search for the task called manage payables calendar. Manage payables calendar is the task type. Okay, just click on go to task. Here it is showing the all the available payables calendar which are defined in the application. So you can view any of these payable calendars, and to create a new calendar just click on plus symbol. So this is where you create your payables calendar, and there is an option called calendar type. If you check in this type, there are two options: payment terms and general purpose. See, the payable calendars, we create a payable calendar which is used for various purposes in Oracle payables module. Okay, so broadly what Oracle has done these calendars into two types. One is the payment terms calendar and the other one is the general purpose calendar. So payment terms calendar, if you remember, while defining the payment terms, we had seen a list of value called, we had seen a field called calendar. So what is this purpose of this payment terms calendar is to generate the Proxima payment terms that we call in Oracle. Proxima payment terms means the uh, best example is your the credit card billing cycle or your telephone postpaid telephone expense billing cycle. So where you will be specifying the cutoff date, the due date on which the payment has to be paid, as well as any grace period. So for that purpose, the payment terms calendar will be used, and for the rest of the various types, we are going to use the calendar type as general purpose. Okay, the other calendar types where we use is one purpose where we can use is on generating the recurring invoices, and also the another calendar that where we can see is while defining is withholding taxes as well. We'll see that when we work on the relevant concepts. Right now our objective is to create a calendar for recurring invoices. What we are going to specify in the calendar for recurring invoices is the frequency, right? For which period, what frequency the invoice has to be paid. Why the invoice has to be paid? Because we need to pay the lease expenses towards the landlord, right? Let us create MIT lease calendar. Okay, so the purpose as we discussed is general purpose, and I want to generate this uh, invoice for each month. So monthly I'm going to pay rent. So for each period, my system should generate an invoice automatically. Okay, so that is where I am taking the frequency as monthly and start date. So let me take it from the January 1st. Okay, and just click on generate periods. Okay, system automatically generated the calendar with the effective start and end dates for each of the period, right? You just save on the calendar, so which the calendar got saved. So there is a field called add years which will be used to use the same calendar for the next year. So once the 2022 pass on, for the 2023 you don't need to define this calendar again, just you can click on the add years so that the application, add the year details for the 23. Okay, so the one of the task calendar we have created. Now create a template. Template means we are going to specify the details, required details. We just have the to create an invoice. What are the information that we required? We require the information is in a structured format, right? There is an invoice header information wherein certain fields you need to populate as part of your invoice header information, lines and distributions, right? So those invoice details where you are going to specify, right? Go to payables, invoices, work area, and click on create recurring invoices. So what it will do is it will download an ADFDA sheet where we are going to give the required details and upload back the data into application so that the invoices will be created back in the application. Just click on enable editing. So it should ask you for the login details. So just give the user details and click on sign in. What happened? Okay, so it is connecting to the application. Okay, so if you anyone has any questions? Okay, no problem. So if you refer to this sheet, it is asking you to provide certain information, right? What business unit for which you want to generate these recurring invoices, what should be the invoice number and the invoice amount for which the invoice has to be generated, right? The supplier details, invoice currency, payment currency, right? The calendar name, just we created a calendar, right? That we need to assign. So likewise, what we did for while creating the manual invoice, what we did, almost more or less the same information you need to provide. Okay, so just select our business unit, MIT Power BU, invoice number, recurring invoice, or we can use anything. Lease expenses 2022, and the invoice amount I am going to pay as 1000. Okay, the supplier, which invoice should be against a supplier, right? Just double click on the supplier so that application connects back to the application to give you a search panel to fetch the supplier data. Search for the supplier called BHEL. Supplier details got populated. What about the site? Okay, give the currency. These are all the fields why we have given while creating an invoice, right? So far what we did, we have given the business unit for which the invoices invoices has to be generated, and the supplier details for which the invoice has to be generated, and the date range we have specified, right? For the date range for each monthly, we need the invoice to be generated, and that prerequisite requirements we had configured in the form of application, sorry, calendar. That calendar we need to assign here. Okay, I think that, what was the name, calendar name? Is it MIT? The MIT lease calendar was the calendar we created. Just give the calendar details and give the period for which the invoice has to be generated, from and to period. So for that range, the invoices will get generated. Right, so far we had given the almost the header information and the line information. We need to fill out what is the amount. I had entered 1000. The same 1000 you can enter on the line as well, 1000, and the invoice quantity, unit, UIM, these all comes into picture when you are creating against a purchase order. So we'll create a non-purchase order related recurring invoices, so that we don't need to provide the data, right? The distribution combination or distribution set, either of these two you have to give. Let us give the code combination instead of distribution set. Okay, so enough. So we had given the, what all the information we had given: the supplier detail, business unit details, the invoice amount, invoice lines amount, as well as the distribution set. That is what the minimum information that we given even while creating the manual invoice. But here in case we had created an payables calendar where we specified the frequency of the invoice to be created, and that payables calendar we had assigned to this template, right? So we even specified the date range. From the date range, when I say a period range, from period to period, so between these periods, the invoices should get generated now. Okay, so once you fill up the data, you just click on the button called generate. On failure, continue to upload the subsequent rows. Okay, so the number of recurring invoices created is 12 invoices created, because we had selected the from and to period Jan to December, right? So let us go and check the invoice which are created in the application. You can go and check the, if you want to check the program, right? You can go into the schedule process. Obviously it would have triggered a program. The output you can check, or else you can check in the manage invoices, right? The recent this info tile also you can use that option to view your invoices, right? So if you can see, lease expense 2022 was the invoice number we have given, but the application is expected to create the invoices for 12 periods. So that is why the suffix is added for each of the invoice it got created, right? 12 invoices got suffixed from sequential number 1 to 12. Okay, so open any of the invoices. Let us go to the October. Right, the invoice is not validated. You can see the information, right? The rest of the process is same. Go to the invoice validation, right? Invoice get validated. You can even account the same. Okay, can you see the expense, item expense that we have given on the template got debited and the liability account got credited. This liability account we had set up on the invoice common options, right? And you can even search the invoices from the manage invoices. All right, there are various ways you can search. You can give the partial invoice number, because you have already uploaded. You would be having the invoice number as a reference, right? So just copy that invoice number and you can use an percentage. This is one of the option, and you can even search with the invoice source as well, because these invoices are got created from the recurring invoice template. The invoices source would be recurring invoice, right? Do you see the source invoice source on your search criteria? No, there is an option, and there is an option you can search in advanced mode, where you will be given the additional options for your search criteria, right? Once you click on the advanced option, there are for the existing search criteria, whatever search parameters we had, these were having the different search options as well, whether you want to whether you want to search with the contains or multiple options, right? Even you can add any additional search criteria as well. So how do you do that? So there is an field called add field, and just check on the relevant source. You can see, so source is one of the attribute, right? Invoice attribute, because these invoices are created from the recurring invoice template. The source should be recurring invoices. So for the source, select the list of from the recurring invoices. See, recurring invoices, just select the recurring invoices and you can click on search, or else you can even further add search criteria like your business unit. Let me add MIT business unit, right? This should fetch me the data. So this should fetch me the data for the business unit MIT power with the source recurring invoices, right? This is how you can search your invoices from the manage invoices form. Okay, these invoices are all automatically got created from the set template that we just configured, from which the invoice is created once you click on the generate button on your ADFDA template, right? Okay, so this is how you work on your recurring invoices. And next topic for us is, so let us do one thing. Once the invoice is created, let us go and check one invoice which we just created, right? We'll see the payments, how you are going to do the payment, right? Once you are, see the payments, you can do it from the invoice work area, but it is in full, pay in full, which means the entire invoice amount has to be paid once. Okay, so if any of the amount for the invoice is having the amount as 1,000, if you want to pay part of this amount, which we call as partial payments in Oracle, that cannot be processed from the invoice work area, right? So to make the payment, you can click on pay in full. So what happens is, once you click on pay in full, it would ask you to provide certain information, right? So what is that information? It is asking you to provide the bank details, bank account, the payment process profile, payment document. So did we configure these items in our application so far? No, right? So to make the payment, obviously you should have your bank account, right? You should, every company should be get defined with their bank account, and from which the disbursement will happen, right? So right now our task is to create the payment related setups. What are those? What we have seen so far: bank account, right? Payment document. What do we even seen? Payment process profiles, right? Okay, so we need to work on these configurations as well. So before creating the banks, anyone has any questions on the invoice creation part? So far we discussed, we had processed different kind of different types of invoices. Anyone has any questions? No questions? Okay, no problem. So I wanted to show one thing before moving into the AP setups as well, the payment setups as well. So for the business unit, the list of values, uh, this we discussed, right? Even yesterday also I was able to show this one. Uh, so this is because of the reference data set that we have used as common, right? So what I did, I had created a reference business unit with a custom reference data set. Okay, so that I will showcase to you, and how after creating that custom reference in business unit with custom reference data set, how the invoice work area, invoice form, what all business units it shows, that I will show that I will showcase to you guys, and then we'll move on to the bank creation. Manage business unit, right? See, I had created a business unit called RDS business unit, and for which I had created reference data set called RDS TR. Okay, so this is custom reference data set. Whereas in our for MIT Power BU, it was common. The common was seeded different reference data set that Oracle gives you, right? So I had created a business unit with the default reference data set, and I had done the relevant business unit configurations as well. What are the relevant business unit configurations for AP side? So once you created a business unit, so for that you need to configure the AP configurations, right? To be able to create an invoice for AP, right? So what I did, I had configured the common options, invoice options, payment options, everything I have done, I have configured. So let me show you that as well. Okay, can you guys see business unit? RD is business unit, and there are different options I had set. If you see this, I had used 102 entity for the other entity from the same business unit group we are configuring. I have just added a different business unit. That's it. Okay. Common options, invoice options. Business unit is RDS BU, and the invoice options I had configured for this BU as well. Subsequently, payment options as well. So to see this one, what I did, I had created a separate user called RDS, and for that user I had assigned the payables roles and provided the data access. What are the payable roles? Accounts payables, invoice. Do you remember?
Accounts payable, invoice supervisor, accounts payable manager.
Correct. So for this user, I had assigned only the payables related role and provided the data access to access this user for the refer RDS BU. Okay. So I had logged in from the RDS user and invoice work area, create invoices. So go and check in the business unit. It is showing only one BU, RDS BU. So let us check. Is not blank, which means it doesn't ask for any such criteria. Let us check. What are the business units in the list of values? It is showing only one BU, which is RDS business unit, and this business unit is only showing in this list of values for invoice header because this business unit is having its own reference data set, which is RDS TR was the reference data set, a custom reference data set I had created and provided the data security to access only this business unit. But in this case, it is showing only one business unit on business unit list of values. But in case of common reference data sets, it is showing the number of business units because the common reference data set is assigned with the multiple business units. That is the major reason for having multiple business units in our MIT Power business unit user. Okay. Clear now on that concept? Why we are seeing multiple business units on the LOV?
Yes.
Okay, let us go on. So right now our task is to work on the bank setups, right? So let us go and create banks now. Okay, so even banks also in Oracle, banks also, it is again a kind of setup, layered kind of setup. Okay, first you need to create a bank. Bank will have its branch, and branch, in the branch you will create account, right? That is how the banks function, right? If you refer to any of the bank, ICICI is the bank, and this bank will have its branches which are spread across a different geographical area, and in one of the branch you would be opening your bank account, right? The same configuration, same kind of functionality you need to create in the system, right? So what is this bank actually? First of all, so bank account we will use for to track our financial information. Subsequently, each company will be owning its own bank account, right? So what are the different banks that you maintain in Oracle, right? The bank account which is company owned, so which will be used for your company, tracking the company banking transactions. Maybe you will be paying to your vendors, or maybe your customers will deposit amount into your bank account. That happens, right? Even while you are making payments to your suppliers, maybe you will be paying by using checks, or maybe you will be transfer the funds electronically, right? So how does that happens, right? You are an employee, so you are working for one organization. Every month your salaries are getting credited into your bank account. How does that happens, right? So there is a transaction between two banks, right? One bank account is your company bank account. Okay, one bank account is another bank account is your employee bank account, right? So in the same way, what happens in this case? What happens? So on the day of your salary credit day, what happens? Your company, let us say you are working for TCS, and the TCS will send its bank account with an instructions saying that these are the employees, these are the vendors for which the specific amount has to be get credited into their respective bank accounts. So when we say respective bank account, which means company also maintains the bank account details of their vendors as well, right? Their employees as well, right? In case of your employee salary credits, your company maintains your bank account details as well, right? Similarly, in Oracle also, you have an option to maintain your supplier bank account details, so that you can make the payments electronically. So which means you can give a directions to your bank saying that specific amount has to be credited to this specific supplier bank account. Okay, so that information you would be maintaining in your application, you would be maintaining in your database, and that information will be sent over to bank in a specified format. Now, so you bank account details, you have your bank account as well as the bank account of suppliers. So how do you differentiate that one? So in these bank accounts, what Oracle says is the bank account which you maintain, which is your bank account where you disburse the funds, or you ask your customers to deposit the funds, that we call as internal banks, internal bank accounts. Okay. Whereas the rest all bank accounts are external bank accounts. Maybe your customer bank accounts, or your supplier bank accounts, or your employee bank accounts, whatever. Those are all category banks accounts will fall under external bank account, right? So these are the two terms. Internal bank account is the bank account of the company from which the funds will get disbursed, and the external bank accounts, the examples are your bank accounts of your supplier bank accounts. Okay, while we are creating the supplier, we have seen the bank account details, right? In the payment tab where you have seen the bank account details. So where that is where you capture your supplier bank details. Okay, so right now we'll go and create the bank branch and bank account. Manage banks is the task. Okay, click on manage banks. See here you can see the three tasks: manage banks, manage bank branches, manage bank accounts. So first you need to create your bank first. Okay, so you can see number of banks which are already got created. Okay, so what is the company, where does the company maintains its bank account? That bank account details needs to be created in your application. So the hierarchy is to, first you need to create a bank, and bank should be created with the branch, and branch should be assigned with bank account, where actually this is how you are linking your bank account details. Okay, so just click on create symbol, right? The country in which your bank account exists, bank name you can give, the actual, you should give the actual bank name. Okay, since we are working on the practice, so you can create a, you can use any string. Okay, MIT bank doesn't exist, MIT bank. So any bank like your HDFC, ICICI, SBI, whatever. So there are certain fields you need to provide while creating the bank. So the country and the bank name are the mandatory fields. The rest of the field, there are the bank code, what is the alternate name of this bank, and the bank code. There are the other fields which are optional. If you are aware of those details, if the banker has provided those details, you can use those details for creating your bank account. If you see, there is also a details address to track. Where is your branch? What is the address of your bank? Maybe your bank head office address you can track here. And who is the contact person for this bank address? That is where you can even that level also you can track your bank details. right? Click on save. Save and close. So your bank already got created. Let us check. Okay, MIT branch. Check if does it has any branches? No, because it is brandly new created bank, right? So for this bank, you can create the branch from here itself. Create branch, it will take you to the bank creation form, or else you can navigate it. You can navigate from the specific task as well. So it doesn't make any difference. So from here, you would need to click on go to task. Okay, so it takes you to the same form. So where you need to, again, you need to provide your bank. So this is okay. Okay, just click on plus symbol. So it is asking you for the details, right? You are going to create a branch for which bank? Just give the bank name. I'm creating a branch for the MIT bank. What is the branch name? MIT okay. So there are alternate name. Even you can see the IFSC code of the bank, BIC code. This is an BIC code will be specific to your branch code, and there are certain other fields. What is the branch number type, bank branch type? There are additional fields. Even for the branch also, you would be having the additional data which you can capture, the branch address as well as the contact person from this branch. You can simply click on save and close. Right, once you created your branch, you can even see the create bank account form already. The tab already got enabled. You can create from here. Okay, let us see what is the difference. What is the difference here? We'll see what is the difference. Once we click on create bank account, it is asking you to provide the bank account name and bank account number. By default, the bank and branch name automatically taken by the system. And let us see the difference if we come from the task type. Right, so what it is asking, it is asking you to provide the bank branch for which you want to create a bank account. Why it is? Because why there is a difference? Because in the previous case, we were on the bank branch form itself, so directly you can go and pick the branch and you can create an account, right? Okay, so even I can give an bank account name. INR, and what the account number, bank account number, and currency, the legal entity name which is owned by this bank account. Okay, in Oracle the legal bank account is bank account owner is the legal entity. Okay, because that is what the company is the owner of this account, right? That is where you are linking your bank account to your legal entity. So what is this account type? Checking, savings, these are optional fields, and IBAN, these are the additional fields, as well as there is a field called account use. What purpose you are going to use this account, whether you are going to use this for payables module, which is for your payments, as well as the same bank account you are going to use in your receivables, where the customers can directly deposit your receipts in the bank account, also are you going to use the same bank account for your payroll process as well, right? If you enable these three checkbox, you can use this bank account in these three area. No, if I have a dedicated bank account for my payables and dedicated bank account for my payroll and for receivables, the same way you can check the check boxes. I am going to use this bank account for payables and receivables. Okay, so once you navigated to this area, you can see this. There are two accounts. One is the cash account, the other one is the cash clearing account and reconciliation differences. What are these accounts? Cash account and cash clearing accounts. If you remember, while we are defining the payments option, we had enabled the option called account for at the time of payment issue and payment clears, right? So at that time, what we discussed, first it will hit into the liability and then it will hit into your cash clearing account, and once the reconciliation, the the actual cash account will get credited. That's what we discussed, right? So that is where these two accounts will come into picture, and when you run your payment process, from where these accounts will get picked. So let us say I am making a payment by using this bank account, and the cash account and cash clearing account will be picked by the application from this configuration. Okay, cash account and cash clearing account. So just give the relevant code combination. Take the cash at bank account. So guys, in reality, so while you are working on your actual implementation, this account, right, the cash at bank account, we would be creating one cash at bank account. We will create dedicated unique account for each of the bank. Let us say the bank has multiple bank accounts, one account in ICICI, one account in HDFC, or if it is in case of global, whatever, the Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whatever. So what we will be creating in your value set values is each of the bank account, we will be creating a dedicated natural account. Okay, so that while you are configuring for the let us say I am creating this MIT bank account, is I am just assuming this is my ICICI bank. Okay, so if I go and use the same account for multiple bank accounts, how do I reconcile my, how do I differentiate my disbursement from the specific bank account, right? So to track in detail and to track in detail for each bank account, in general, in any of the implementation, what we do is for each of the bank account, we will create one dedicated bank account in your natural account, the account segment value set, and that value we will be using. Okay, in this case 1505 is the bank account which we are going to use for this MIT bank account. You assume that if the company has a different bank account in different bank, maybe different account in the same bank, so to differentiate that, we will be creating a different, it is basically it is will be representing with different account segment value. So maybe it is, maybe the next one would be 1506 or 1507 or 1510, whatever, right? That is how you can track the differentiation, right? Let us see if we have defined the cash clearing account, any clearing account, we'll use that one. Okay, cash clearing we already have. Okay, so I have created the bank account with specifying the what is the bank account, the cash account that needs to be get picked for my payments. While making the payments and reconciliation, these two accounts will comes into picture, right? So once you create your bank account, you need to provide the business unit access, so that when you are generating any payments from any of the business unit, that business unit should get assigned here. Okay, so let us see what all the options it asks when you click on your business unit. So it would ask you to, not Tim, that should be MIT. There is a problem. Let me open and it's again, we are facing some issues with the application. So the form is getting loaded for the wider area. Let's see if that gets resolved in the other form. Lots work. Let me quickly go into the bank setup. Just let me change the clearing account.
ఏదన్నా కీబోర్డ్ లో కీ ఏదైనా స్టక్ అయి నొక్కుపోయి ఉందని చూడండి ఒకసారి.
లేదు ఇది అప్లికేషన్ ఫామ్ అప్లికేషన్ ఇష్యూ ఈవెన్
ఒకసారి ఎంటర్ బటన్ స్టక్ అయిపోతే ట్రాక్ అయిపోతూ ఉంటుంది.
కీబోర్డ్ కాదు. వాట్ హ్యాపెన్స్ ఇస్ ఈ ఫామ్ ఇఫ్ ఐ డోంట్ సెలెక్ట్ ఎనీథింగ్ రైట్ దిస్ ఫామ్ గెట్ ఎక్స్టెండెడ్. ఐ మీన్ ఇఫ్ యు సీ ఈ ఫామ్ ఇక్కడ బాటమ్ లో స్క్రోల్ బార్ ఉంటుంది చూసారా, ఇది చిన్న అంటే ఈ ఫామ్ ఏంటంటే వైడర్ రేంజ్ లో ఎక్స్పాండ్ అయికుంటూ పోతుంది. నాట్ షూర్ వై. రైట్ సైడ్ లో ఎక్స్పాండ్ అయికుంటూ పోతుంది. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇప్పుడు ఫస్ట్ మీరు క్లిక్ చేసినప్పుడు ఈ బ్యాంక్ అకౌంట్ ఫామ్ చిన్నగా ఉంటుంది. then it goes into the wider. Even I had the same issue yesterday also, but after some time it allowed me to create. No, still. On this form, just we need to assign this business unit and save and close. That's it. That is the only pending task on this one. But let's see. Just let me give one more time. If not, we'll wind up for today. This is what happens.